Welcome back, everyone, to the league. It's the final round of league play for the league. The round robin of 6 teams trying to find it into that top 5 gauntlet finals. And Jordan is here joining me for his first real cast. Real cast of Rocket League, of competitive Rocket League. And how are you enjoying it so far?
Well, some might say, Yummy, that you're joining me because, after all, I think I am the more experienced Rocket League caster here, having done the first LAN in Australia for Rocket League. But anyway, I don't want to toot my own horn too much. It's been fun. It's been interesting. You know, it's always a little bit of an interesting time casting a new title. You go into it, you have to try and figure out all the terminology, all the language, what you should be saying, what you shouldn't be saying, what's good, what's bad, when to get excited, when not to get excited. And yeah, we're still on that journey, I suppose, but quite interested to see how this second game is going to go. As you've said, it's looking like it should shape up as one that might have a little bit of not so much drama involved, but maybe a bit of a bit of a rivalry.
I'd say drama when it comes to this sort of stuff. So there has been roster changes, as you'd expect. At the end of a season, at the end of an RLCS season, teams go willy-nilly, they go stir-crazy. They decided second place, not good enough. So what do? You change your team. Don't work out your issues or anything like that. So right now, Jules is playing on Cringe Society with Deca and Trip A, and Torsos is now on Ground Zero with Express and Amphis. What are your thoughts on that, Elfish guy?
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Because we've seen some of these players playing together before. We've seen Jules, who used to team with Deca, coming back and going forwards and all of that going on. So it's all a little bit weird, isn't it? But rejoining forces, I suppose. They're in Cringe Society, having moved over to Ground Zero. So I suppose for you, this is... Right, you were talking about this a little bit earlier on, where you were saying, like, you felt maybe Ground Zero... I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you correct me if I'm wrong. You were sort of saying you thought maybe Ground Zero would be able to get the better of Cringe Society today, which seems strange if you look at where they are on the standings, right? So theoretically, is it a favorable... Wait, hang on. What's just happened there?
Well, it's not a good start. Let's just say that for the stream or for the players, because I also hadn't updated the scoreboard because I was too busy getting a drink of water. But just straight off the kickoff, the first goal. And when it came to kind of talking about these teams and the changes, I do expect that Ground Zero will have a better start overall. I think mechanically now, I'd put Torsos and Amphis really high up there. I think the way that Express plays very defensively should help out in terms of their original structure as a team.
Okay, well, I'm already starting to get a bit of a different idea of this game than what we had from Renegades and Mindfreak, because this one, straight out the gates, 2 very quick goals scored, 1 apiece so far. And yeah, that was the whole TLDR for me. It was like trying to get an idea of who you thought actually might have gotten away with the better roster change here. It's interesting that if, in your opinion, it is Ground Zero, that Cringe Society have lost in terms of that trade war, so to speak, because they are the team that's at the top of the standings. Is the general consensus that they were a better team than Ground Zero prior to this roster change, or no?
Yeah, I mean, overall, you put Cringe Society slightly ahead, but Ground Zero have been on the up, so it's an interesting question. I don't think you really put either ahead of the other, or you might put Ground Zero ahead of Cringe Society overall, just because they've had better performances of late. They've looked really good. So, of course, it makes it even more interesting that kind of Jules was the one that made the voluntary decision to leave Ground Zero and join Cringe Society, where, that space had opened up. It wasn't kind of a mutual decision. It was kind of Torsos got dropped by that roster, and Jules made the decision to move on over. And that's what really interests me in terms of, I guess, the decisions being made here.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if it was something that he sort of knew about and they were like, okay, well, are you interested in joining? If you are, we'll drop Torsos. And that was kind of the go signal for him. Or whether or not it just sort of happened and he was like, oh, that looks good. Might move in there. Either way, we'll see how it pans out tonight. Obviously, a little bit of a friendly rivalry, so to speak, in this one.
It's going to be reasonably friendly, but maybe the wounds could also be fresh. I think this is such an important series to say, you know, who maybe has made the original better decision between these two teams. Who will be the one that's kind of feeling a bit bad, especially if, you know, well, like for the likes of both Jules and Torsos, or even Decker and Drippe, who made the decision to make the roster change for Cringe Society in the first place.
Well, Torsos is going to get himself a goal. So Ground Zero coming up with the goods. And so far, Yummy, it seems like maybe your prediction is correct in that Ground Zero might have come off a little bit better, but it is early days.
It's also a really nice shot from Torsos. That actually requires a surprising amount of mechanics to kind of flick that in the air. And maybe a bit of fortune for it to crossbar and back into him. But even still, he made it so hard for the defense in the first place.
It's a nice confidence builder, maybe, against your old teammates as well. Get, I don't know if he come in with any nerves or anything like that, but maybe even just a little bit of a one-up. He's gone for another attempt there, but this time knocked away by the fresh blood in Cringe Society, which is Jules.
I think the funniest thing as well about this roster change, it's kind of, you know, this match is all about this roster change. It's almost insane to some degree, because both teams were being very successful. Cringe Society were in the number 2 position in terms of the points, so they were the best in the league, you know, in terms of their overall standings. Number 2 in terms of points in RLCS, but they wanted to make a change. And Jules has decided he has a better run of it with Cringe Society than with Renegade, than with Ground Zero, obviously. But the major thing for me is that both of them, you know, both Jules and Torsos, when I was speaking with them, both of their kind of idea is that they want to have more impact. They want to feel like they can play more of their game. They both have the exact same story. So Jules thinks that he can play more aggressive and part of the attack on Cringe Society, and Torsos feels the same when it comes to Ground Zero. And we've already seen, I think, that come into fruition when it comes to Torsos. He's been playing very aggressive as part of this Ground Zero roster.
Yeah, and here might be another opportunity, but it'll be cleared away by Decker. There's another cross, a good one. It's not even a cross, it's a goal, Yummy. Torsos again, that's 2 for him. And he is really putting the hurt.
Not only that, but it's another good display of mechanics. Off the corner, good recovery, a nice touch over. And the thing is, the defense was surprised by that follow-up touch. They didn't expect him to be able to recover that well. And that's the danger of Torsos.
Right, the danger indeed, as I am starting to realize in this matchup. And if he has got a touch on the ball, I think it's definitely worth keeping an eye on things, because it seems to turn to gold. 3-1 so far, favoring Ground Zero at the moment. And they only have to hold on for another 20 seconds. So to grab another couple of goals in 20 seconds, I think is going to be a pretty difficult prospect here for Cringe Society. Particularly with the ball in their territory.
It is pretty much all she wrote here. 3-1, that's going to be it. And it's a good showing, not just from Ground Zero early on, but really impressed with Torsos and his ability to make those plays. But also, I think the difference that we're seeing here is they're not relying on just pushing Amphis forwards. So, although we've got eyes on Torsos as he's the new player on this team, I think Amphis is also a player we really want to watch as somebody that Ground Zero have super relied on to be pushing forward, playing hyper-aggressive. How's he going to handle being more of a midfield player? Because even on his old roster, on Fury, he was always that aggressive player. He's never been in a position where he hasn't been.
Is Rocket League the kind of game that has pretty heavy role clashes, if that is the kind of terminology you would use?
To some extent, right? If you have two people playing really aggressively at all the time, they'll get into the same position, they'll double commit, and when you have two people, you know, commit for the same ball, you take out 2/3 of your team. And you have to really rely on a good shot. But kickoff goal early on here for Drippe. It's a nice showing for Cringe Society. That one just bouncing a little awkwardly for Torsos.
Yeah, 2 very, very early goals in both of the games here between Ground Zero and Cringe Society. So this time it's Cringe Society that will get off on the board early. Maybe an opportunity for a second goal here for them. Trippe gets it straight in. Oh dear, what a response from Cringe Society. They were not happy with that last game, and now it is Ground Zero that are well and truly on the back foot.
Yeah, and it's off 2 kickoff goals. I mean, that one took a little bit of time to develop from the kickoff, but it was a kickoff goal, and Amphis maybe a soft clear, not the right play. It's going to be interesting with Amphis too, I think, you know, kind of leaning back to what I was saying. When we watch him, see how he goes more defensively, how he actually handles those plays where he's stuck alone against 2 players. Can he step up to the mark there?
It's a pretty good question. So far, things have been going pretty well for Ground Zero, but this game a little bit rougher for them, so a relatively hefty response is required. Torsos is just going to keep that ball bouncing away in the Cringe Society territory. But definitely getting the sense that Cringe Society is making a good fight back here. They're not prepared to lie down and die in this series, obviously being only 2 games in. Here is another one for Deki. Oh no! He's blocked Jules.
It's looking a little rough here and there, but you're kind of expecting that from 2 teams that have only just made this roster change. The 2 teams who, you know, have maybe done a couple of scrims with these rosters. Kind of see them throughout the week, and that's a good shot from Express. Just a nice play up the middle of the pitch coming out from Ground Zero.
Well, puts it right back into 1-point territory, which is a little bit more comfortable for Ground Zero. Cringe Society could have been up 3-0, Yummy. Just think about that context for the rest of this game.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but also sort of if you're in Ground Zero's position, you're probably not too mad about this game getting away from you. You know, it's just kickoff goals, which is obviously something you never want to be giving up, but also it means that, you know, kind of in that midfield play and that important part of the pitch, you've played perfectly fine. You may have even got that 1-goal advantage in that midfield play. So they're not going to be too upset with the way they're playing, and it's pretty easy, in theory, to change a kickoff.
Yeah, I suppose you won't get too concerned about that. It's a little bit of a freebie for Cringe Society. It could end up actually panning out worse for Cringe Society if they do end up somehow losing this game from there, feeling like they might have gotten away with a couple of freebies. That they weren't then able to capitalize on that and consolidate a victory. So perhaps Ground Zero can really just turn that back on its head.
It still blows my mind seeing Torsos on the Ground Zero roster. Like, I keep looking at them and go, okay, that's Cringe Society. See Jules over on the other team, okay, that's Ground Zero. It's messing with my head a little bit, but we're going to have to get used to it at this point in time, especially as Torsos has made a brilliant play off the corner.
Very nice cross indeed for Torsos. Sets it up perfectly for Express, who's in there at the right time. The defense can't come through, and we are right back to 2 apiece. So I don't know what your general consensus is here, Yummy Cheeseman, for this game, but at the moment it's actually feeling like Ground Zero is well and truly on top, despite the fact that the scoreline's 2-2.
Yeah, very much in Ground Zero's favor. The fact that that wasn't a kickoff goal, well, that's the only goals that we've seen from Cringe Society so far, pretty much all series. And that means that at this point in time, with this not being a kickoff goal, you should expect it to go the other way, but that's just going to go one end to the other. Jules finds an opening off the demo.
Well, a very good punch straight back in there from Cringe Society. Just when we're beginning to question their ability to score goals in this series, they do answer with a really solid one. And so, once again, the onus is back onto Ground Zero to make that comeback happen. Express is going to get a nice little boop. Amphis now in control, and there's 3 players from Ground Zero. Never mind.
Amphis have managed a lot with that air dribble too, and that's the danger. We can see when he's got time to make some big plays, his mechanics do really shine out here. Even the likes of Torsos can sometimes struggle there, but Cringe Society now, they've got 2 midfield players who take away those kickoff goals from earlier. They're now back in control, back in the driver's seat, and of course with a 2-goal lead because of that.
Yeah, perhaps getting a little bit hasty in our prediction there, Yummy, because this one's starting to look like it's going to be a little more difficult for Ground Zero than anticipated. Another one straight out to the side of the field and back deep into Ground Zero territory. Cringe Society with a nice little cross, but not able to land too much off of it. Now here's the opportunity for the counter-attack. It's just going to hit the crossbar. Torsos, another opportunity, but won't land that one. Now it's Express's turn. Everyone getting a piece of the pie at the moment for Ground Zero, but no one, unfortunately, being able to have their cake and eat it.
Yeah, disappointing for Express too. He really had the opportunity there. A bit of an open net, just needed to find the redirect on as Decker hits the crossbar. So some chances still coming out for Ground Zero, but with 2 goals, they need to sink every single one, and the one lost from Express may be what prevents them from bringing this game back. Though 30 seconds left, still kind of at that cusp of where you may have that chance, especially if you can get a kickoff goal.
Well, they have to score it pretty quickly here. And Memphis might have given them the opportunity, getting a good clearance up into the air from Express. The cross, not going to happen from him, but Torsos is going to put it right in the slot for Amphis, who didn't feel he had the opportunity, didn't go for it, but here we go again. This one has to go in, and it won't. 8 seconds left on the clock, and I think that is now the countdown to a 1-1 scoreline in this series as well. And it will be, so well done from Cringe Society. They bring it straight back and equalize things.
Yeah, very quickly brought back in the kind of last minute or so for Cringe Society. Earlier on, you know, throughout that midfield play, it didn't look in their favor. You can kind of see that if you actually, you know, go back to what you said earlier in terms of shots. Very equivalent number of shots overall between the 2 teams as well. So you're not expecting that one of them was in huge control of the midfield. But I think this next game is going to be a bit more interesting because we're probably not going to see 2 kickoff goals right off the bat.
No, I would not. I would not be expecting that, and maybe not predicting it either. Yummy. It's always important to know what I'm predicting. But I don't know. Where do you get a sense of the levels in this series? Is it sort of sitting about 50-50? Is it kind of a balance? Like for me, I mean, I look at this and I think, okay, this could still kind of go either way. I'm not getting an idea of who might be leading from the front.
I think you're going to see, as the series goes on, it'll topple back and forth. Again, these are 2 really new rosters. Realistically, in Rocket League, you make one change, it can really blow out your rotation, it can blow out your team play. It is a third of your team for one, but also you know, how you position off your teammates, how you understand the game is very different from player to player, and a small difference can cascade into a lot more. So we're kind of expecting that neither of these teams will find their footing so much, and that means that we aren't expected one to, I guess, completely blast through at any point in time.
Well, that does just bounce off of the crossbar. Jules unlucky not to get a better tap there. Torsos is going to try and pass it over to Amphis, but it does go by the wayside just a little bit.
Yeah, the pass was just a little bit too far behind.
This one floats quite nicely right in front of the goalposts for Cringe Society, but it's not going to be put away just yet, despite that demo coming through.
Crucial touch from Torsos there as the redirect was probably on, and he was in a very difficult position to actually make the touch. This one's going to sink in front of net, but because of the extra power from the pinch, it ends up going too far ahead of the Ground Zero attack. Ground Zero have certainly some advantage here. They've had a couple of good plays, and they've also had some good possession, really solid passes. We've seen Torsos and Amphis starting to connect, and we've always talked in the past of Torsos Drip A tag team duo. Well, if we do manage to see at some point Torsos and Amphis really connecting strongly, then that's going to be a huge danger to pretty much any defense in OC.
Certainly, Ground Zero so far quite happy with things at 1-0, but Not having a great time of getting this ball out of their territory. Torsos going to try and float this one in front of goal, but it's redirected by the players from Cringe Society. And so Ground Zero will have to go looking elsewhere for another point on the board.
1-0 though. Ground Zero are going to be pretty happy with this because they're pacing a lot of these plays, but that is an awkward one. Drupe finds a bit of an open net, and you can kind of see from the angle of Torsos how difficult these roof touches are to read. It hits the crossbar. Here, Torsos is expecting it to go in, so for Drupe, very simple to know exactly where that's going to bounce. That's why he's got the open net.
Makes it count as well. We're back to an equalized scoreline. Still plenty of time in this game. 2 minutes and 50, 2 minutes and 40 left on the clock. Torsos is going to go for another bit of a run here. Nice aerial dribble, but it won't result in too much. And this time another open net. Drupe can't get that one back down on the ground quickly enough. Unfortunately, the Cringe Society, that'll be defended well. Ground Zero live to fight another day. Here's another chance, and that one's too easy. Decker makes it happen, and now Cringe Society up 2-1. Immediate response, quick couple of responses from them, and pressure's back on now for Ground Zero.
And they made the defense panic too. Just where that ball was going, Torsos went, so did Amphis. So spills out into the middle with a double commit, makes it easy as. And I guess we look at how these teams are going. Torsos, compared to Jules, high impact, going for a lot of these plays. Amphis as well, you know, they're making the plays happen. But right now, and I think this is how Cringe Society want to play, how they've been trying to develop their play style, they're trying to play this really consistent style, and that seems to be working. You know, if you're up against a newer team with Torsos, where maybe a few more mistakes in the rotation are going to happen, just playing a consistent style, you can expect the mistakes to happen, and you can capitalize on them, and that's what's happening now. But we aren't seeing a huge amount of impact coming out from the new player, Jules. He's just trying to fit into the rotation, it seems.
Well, which I think is fair enough. That's a reasonable thing to do coming into a new roster, is you don't necessarily need to make a splash, but just don't screw it up. And let the other boys, the ones that are maybe a little bit more comfortable, do most of the walking and the talking. Here's a shot on goal from Jules, but Torsos is easily there to defend it away. Another one, probably going a little bit too high this time for Cringe Society, but so many attempts, and inevitably one of these has to go in. Ground Zero is going to have to do something about it.
It's looked really good as well in the last couple of minutes for Cringe Society. I think they've figured out how they want to execute here, and they're pinning them in, they're holding them in the midfield, they're playing defensive where they need to, they're waiting for these mistakes, and there's been some good shots coming out. In terms of shots, they're really aiming for those top corners, which is why at the moment we've seen a couple off the crossbar, but not necessarily a surprise, not ones that I'd say you have to be able to hit in these scenarios, especially with a 1-goal lead.
Oh, nice little bit of a bait and switch there from Jules. Keeps him in possession of the ball. Drupe now holding on to things. Not having exactly the ideal situation going on there, and that's a big clearance, but Decker luckily is there to stop any thoughts of a counter-attack. Here's one. Torsos gets it right back in at the 11th hour, and we're back to 2 apiece.
That's a great touch by Express as well. They were circling, they were pushing hard, a little bit more aggressively, just like Ground Zero have been throughout most of the games so far. But that extra aggression, probably that extra practice being aggressive, has put them in a better position to make that last-second comeback. Maybe another chance here, Decker. What I was saying earlier, if they're missing a couple of plays, not mattering, well, it's obviously really come to an important part here. You would have wanted to sink at least one of those chances. And now we head to overtime, and it'll only become more important that you do so.
Golden point, of course, is what you're referring to. Cringe Society are the ones that are starting off with maybe the initial offense, but it's been brought right back into the control of Ground Zero. Setting this one up nicely. Amphis, how's he done that so easily? And Ground Zero from behind, they were down 1 and 2. And they just make it look really cool, calm, and collected as they win it in overtime, 3-2, and give themselves the advantage in the series.
I'm as flabbergasted as you are, and I think Decker was as well. You saw Amphis go up there. He looks a little awkward. He looks like he's not going to get a follow-up touch, and he makes something special of it. Decker was completely caught by surprise. That's why he didn't even go up for that ball as it sails past his head. So ground zero, hold in terms of that overtime, and they kind of got that last second goal too. So good signs for ground zero that they got the last couple of goals. A little bit of momentum heading into this game where they're looking to get onto match point.
Certainly seeming the opportunity is there for them, and they have been working hard here, ground zero, to prove that they've gotten the better of this trade between players. Oh, potential early goal again, and it's just going to roll straight in. How does this keep happening, Yummy? What is going on?
Yeah, the kickoff goals are surprising. Torsos was playing incredibly close on that cheat. So as soon as the ball goes slightly out of his favor, it's almost already past him. And sure, he's taking that risk of being close to the ball to maybe try and score a goal himself. But that also leads to goals in your own net. I don't think at this stage of the progression of this team that you want to be letting up any free goals, any kickoff goals whatsoever.
Definitely not. This one might be on the ball for Drippe, but he's just not quite there quickly enough, and it'll be cleared for ground zero. I think you're right, though. It's like ground zero making the job difficult for themselves. They've probably been, I'd say, maybe slightly the better side in this matchup, but as far as goals are concerned, they're just not quite getting them on the board. Admittedly, they are up 2-1, letting a little bit too many through, and giving Cringe Society a bit more of an advantage, maybe a handicap even coming into some of these games. But they have been able to swing them back. They've been able to pull them back, so credit where it's due for ground zero.
Real credit too, as well. And it comes here, you know, Cringe Society, they're starting to put games on the board. If they can get another one, then they're probably going to secure their first place, despite a loss, as we said earlier, when it comes to the tiebreakers. They're in a very good spot. I probably need Basink. He's probably in the chat. Maybe able to confirm that, because I can't really do the calculations while casting as well. And Decker will almost sink another one just to give them an extra game on the board. I think if ground zero to win 4-1 here, you know, you're most likely expecting that will return Renegades into a number one seed position. So maybe at the moment just expecting one more game, but I'd have to, again, figure that out.
We'll keep an eye on that storyline for the rest of this series, which it does feel might not be over too quickly. Things are reasonably close between these teams. Ground zero keeping the ball mostly in Cringe Society's path. Now it finally swings back, but immediately cleared by Amphis, who's doing that sweeper job.
John coming up in chat. So if it's a 4-1, they'll be tied on +9 game differential, which I then think it goes to percentage and then head-to-head, in which they won over Renegades. So would be in a very good spot. And I don't think ground zero are as likely to get that game differential up as much as Renegades were able to today. So I think Cringe Society may be already starting to secure their spot. One more game on the board, but the way ground zero have been going, they've been able to take control of these midfield plays. Again, the only goal here has been a kickoff goal. So if ground zero can get one on the board, they'll probably be feeling pretty confident in terms of if they go to an overtime or a situation where they are at a tied spot.
Yep, for sure. And Amphis is going to have an opportunity at a run here. He's pushed away by Cringe Society. Drippe keeping his eye on the prize. The ball not quite in a position to really have an attempt on goal, but maybe Drippe can be the one to put it there. Torsos patiently waits and knocks it back to the midfield. Amphis, a bit of a deft touch, and luckily Jules is there to stop that ball from going into dangerous territory for Cringe Society.
That was a good passing play as well. You can see them starting to connect better and better. Earlier on in the series, Torsos and Amphis, their passing was a little bit off where they like to be. I think a major part of that is Amphis likes to push more forward than Torsos probably is used to. And as they find out a little bit more about each other, it's more likely for those passes to connect like we have been seeing in the latter half of this series.
Amphis just pops that one up for Drippe. Decky isn't really able to make use of it. The ball's gone a little bit too wide of the goal. There was another attempted shove straight in from Drippe, but won't be able to make it work. Now time is ticking away, though. Only 45 seconds left for Ground Zero to work with, and they'll be looking, obviously, to equalize, push this one into overtime. There was an attempt on goal, but well defended by Express.
A chance here for Torsos to continue proving his worth, and Amphis was hoping that 50 would go straight towards him, but as we've seen from the Cringe Society, it is all about jumping on these mistakes, about intercepting these plays, and Decker will find that open net.
Well, that is probably a game-securing goal from him as well. Puts it up 2-0 with 30 seconds, as you said a couple of rounds ago. Maybe there's still a chance for Ground Zero, but they're going to have to do something pretty special. Amphis tries to set it up nicely for his teammates. Now it'll be Torsos' turn to do much the same, but neither having a real degree of success. And in fact, there's another one that nearly gets slotted in for Cringe Society. So many shots on goal for them, but 2 is going to be more than enough. With 2 seconds left here, Decker will just send it back down to the other end of the field. And that's Cringe Society equalizing things at 2 apiece.
Yeah, it's nice to see. These series have been very close. I know that you wanted to, end up around 9 p.m.
Yep.
But it looks like it's going to be going on a little bit longer today, and I'm pretty happy for that one. We've got some very close series so far, and this one looks to be delivering the same at this point in time. Heading towards at least 6 games, obviously, but potentially a game 7, how back and forth this one's been.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has been back and forth, but we sort of said the same thing about Mind Freak and Renegades, and that ended up looking pretty clean for Renegades in the end. So maybe we have to, reserve our judgment until we see a little bit more from both teams. It is hard to put too much between them at the moment, though.
Yeah, but to be fair, for Renegades and Mind Freak, they're kind of 2 much more established rosters who have been together for a long time, so you're going to have more stable performances, less mistakes overall. And immediately off the kickoff, we do see Ground Zero get their first advantage. They've been kick-offed over and over and over again throughout the series, and even though it took a bit more time, Torsos will sink it in the end.
Yeah, it always seems to be the case with this series, is having those early points on the board, and this time it'll be Ground Zero's. Last time it was Cringe Society that got the first goal of the round.
Keep in mind as well that Torsos was the one dropped from the Cringe Society roster, so he's the one who really has to prove himself here. He's certainly pretty happy about this move, even though he got dropped. It seems like he's had some real good motivation recently, and he's hoping to make Ground Zero great again. And that one, Amphis gets the own goal. It was confusing. This was total chaos in front of it, caused by Drippe landing on that one. You're not expecting that, and Amphis, unfortunately, is the disaster kid.
Well, I got to say, at least as far as Torsos is concerned, I think he's been having the impact today to my very untrained eye. So I don't know if that speaks to anything, but whatever. Amphis, he's made amends for it. No problems at all. Ground Zero, they're back up to the 1 lead. 2-1 this time, and I think he recognized that he might have been in the bin after the own goal, but that more than makes amends for it.
You're putting the Amphis in the bin. He's not even 18 yet, man. Wait till
I'm not. I mean, I'm just saying, if I was on his team, I wouldn't be happy. But it's fine.
All right, let's worry about whether Elfish Guy ever gets on a team, because he's going to be starting to throw people in the bin, left, right, and center anytime they make a mistake. But Amphis, as you said, did make up for it, and what was nice, I feel like, is we're still seeing Express being a great connecting player. He's been so powerful in that position with Ground Zero at the end of this season, but Jules gets a double. It was really off a misread on the backboard, though.
Well, it's all about making or taking advantage of those mistakes, as we've said a lot tonight, and so far, I think a lot of the mistakes have been really punished on both sides. So straight back to the 2 apiece. It just seems that neither team can really get a whole lot of breathing room, and we're destined for a very backward and forward game.
At least for these teams as well. When we talked about, wanting to prove themselves, first time with this rosters, at least for them, whoever loses will know that they went pretty close, and all they have to do is make some, minor improvements as time goes on. You'll expect major improvements from both of these teams, realistically, as time goes on, to bring it back. So it's not been a demoralizing defeat either way. It still stayed close throughout the entire series, but Drippe can't find that angle. It's still an attack here for Cringe Society. Jules keeping the pressure on, making sure that Torsos has no room to breathe, and in fact will stay in the attack there, exactly where he wants to be. Decker's actually left that for Jules as well, so Jules getting a lot more impact, a lot more time from his teammates on this play so far, and it's Decker having to hold the defense.
Yeah, Torsos trying to control that one on the corner, but it's actually going to end up bouncing back into friendly territory. Luckily, Amphis has done a really good job of just keeping possession of that ball. Now a relatively open-looking goal. Drippe defends well, and it'll be Torsos to catch it on the other end. Still continues to go backwards and forwards, doesn't it? That is nice from Torsos, but equally as good from Decker.
It's always surprising to see at the moment Cringe Society looking quite comfortable on the defense, even with the roster change too. Normally defense is the hardest thing to really lock down in Rocket League. Jules has got a really nice shot there. Decker had got the perfect pass, and Drippe opened up the net in the first place.
Yeah, Torsos was demoed right in the middle of that as well, so no chance for a defense for ground zero.
It's also good to see all three of them involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice play that gets Cringe Society in the lead, but Amphis fires straight back, and all three of the goals this time for ground zero have been off the kickoff. What a turnaround.
Why does this keep happening? It's just like every single time a goal happens, there has to be an answering goal.
Well, I don't know why there's kickoff goals happening. There shouldn't be this many in a single series.
No, but I guess it has been the trend. Bit of a messy game, maybe, but you can understand with two newer rosters. This one looks okay for Cringe Society until it's cleared by Torsos. He's not going to have much of an attempt at controlling that ball. Got no booster available.
Torsos with his clear. He was so powerful earlier for ground zero in terms of setting up opportunities, and hasn't been that deciding factor, but we have seen more coming out of Amphis at the same time, because he was not being able to achieve much in that forward half earlier on. So a bit more of a balanced approach at the moment as the series goes on for ground zero. But even still, I think with the room that Torsos has had on the ball a few times, he could have achieved a lot more, and I certainly expect him to be achieving a lot more. So maybe this is his time to step up.
Maybe. Express. Not quite able to reach that ball first, and so it'll go bouncing back into ground zero's territory. Defense required, and Torsos will oblige. Still got a couple of players back here for Cringe Society, so that clearance ball isn't going to be a concern for them at all. And they're back on the offense quite quickly until Express is going to force things away. 28 seconds, and we might be headed toward another overtime. Torsos can't quite reach that ball. Jules, can he set this one up for his team, or just give it back the control of the ball to Amphis?
We're going to hit into that silver goal territory. One goal makes all the difference. Maybe even golden goal overtime. Express here has found a solid touch that's going to make Drippe have to sweat just a little bit, but touchdown by Amphis. Overtime again. These two teams have been incredibly close all series long.
A lot of overtimes tonight. Not sure if that's standard fare. Oh, that was a little bit too close for comfort, but the second will be slotted by Cringe Society, and this time, Yummy, there will not be an opportunity for the response from ground zero. So they're just going to have to eat that one and go down 3-2 allowing Cringe Society to move on to match point.
All I can say is 4 kickoff goals in one game. 1 for Cringe Society, 3 for Ground Zero. I feel like that's got to be a record. It's almost stupid. But again, we kind of looked at earlier on where Cringe Society was scoring all the kickoff goals, and we said, well, at least Ground Zero were playing well in the midfield. Well, Ground Zero didn't have any midfield plays. They didn't get any midfield goals. It has been, for the most part, all Cringe Society this game.
Yeah, it's a good sign heading into this match point for them as well, given that, maybe if they do have a little bit of the better of it, they're well set up to ensure that this one's going to end in 6 instead of having to go all the way to 7.
And it seems quite likely that we will see Ground Zero fight back. It has been back and forth the entire series so far. Ground Zero still kept that game close. But again, I need to see a bit more from Torsos with the time that he has. Maybe Amphis could make some bigger plays as well, because I do feel like Express is the one at the moment for Ground Zero, maintaining, I guess, the same level that we expect, despite, the uncomfortability of a new roster. You don't normally expect an individual to play as well with the new roster. But I feel like Express has lived up to it.
All right, well, let's see if Cringe Society can finish it here and now. 5 minutes and a must-win game for Ground Zero, being down 3-2 in the series. And First sets it up almost for Express, but it won't go in this time. And so Cringe Society immediately on the defense, but defending well. Drippe is going to get the clearance and bounces it right over Amphis' head. Torsos luckily is there to boop it away from the goal. Decker just hits the crossbar.
It looks like Cringe Society as well, working well as a team. I mean, these infield passes have been really nice, really deadly throughout. It's got them a couple of goals in the last one, including that Jules one where Drippe demoed open the net. You haven't seen the same just so far from Ground Zero. More hoping for big solo plays to work out. As Express maybe the only player getting some great passes coming out so far for Ground Zero. Jules does almost get it past Amphis, but the double touch off the roof will really help him out.
Oh, Drippe is going to get that ball out of his territory. Now Decker looking to set things up for his teammates. We'll just fumble it a little bit, but Jules is there. Not going to be the perfect setup for either team just yet. Still scoreless in game number 6 of this evening between Ground Zero and Cringe Society.
Scoreless is a surprise too, because we've seen this be a high-scoring affair. Maybe because of the kickoff goals, but even despite it's been quite a few goals. And this may be settled in, as we probably are in a position right now where Ground Zero desperately don't want to lose a goal. Maybe Cringe Society are in a position where they're like, okay, well, we're pretty comfortable right now. We're not going to push too hard. And as we were sort of saying earlier, they like to play a defensive play style. So if they are comfortable, they're going to be happy to sit back.
I mean, inevitably, someone's going to have to get something on the board here. And it's looking like it may be Ground Zero that are threatening a little bit more so. Torsos trying to get the cross to his teammates, but won't set things up enough. And so Cringe Society will be quite eager to... Oh, Drippe bounces it off the backboard, does it all himself, doesn't need a hand. I mean, Jules set it up for him, but look at this from Drippe.
That's such a quick read. And Jules, of course, as well, credit where credit's due, gets a great air dribble, multiple touches to really beat out the defender. But it was really Drippe there. Superstar of OCE, the former number 1, has proven himself again earlier on this series and since been quiet. If he can pull out some more stuff like that, we'll be talking about him in the tabloids once again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm a big tabloids reader myself.
I didn't know you could read it all.
I know. You would never have known after all the esports that I cast. That's a little bit awkward from Torsos, but he's not going to be able to really get too much off the ball. Wasn't really punished for it either.
1 goal lead here for Cringe Society. again, talking about their more defensive playstyle, their more controlling midfield playstyle, having the lead, they should be able to hold on to it. But if there is any team or any players that can crack it, it's got to be Amphis, and Express will finish that off after Amphis gets up to this one nice and quick, makes it a tough touch, and an even easier read there for Express.
Yeah, Decker had the right idea. He was just waiting patiently, trying to get what he could done, but not there quickly enough, and so we do equalize once again. Let's see if we get another kickoff goal. Oh, it sets up kind of nicely for ground zero, but this time a solid defense from Cringe Society, and it bounces away.
Just realized that, Amphis has looked the most deadly off the kickoff, and that's probably where he feels he has the most room at this point in time. They're going to have to figure out how to give Amphis that space in the future, because he is really deadly. He's probably one of the most deadly, if not the most deadly, offensive player with space in the region. You just have to figure out how to get it to him. He's playing a lot more third man at the moment, as you saw there, with Express pushing forward. Torsos will be looking to make the plays himself, but more midfield control coming out from both teams.
40 seconds, otherwise we're heading to overtime. Golden goal again. This time it'll be Jules that's in possession of the ball, trying to threaten toward ground zero. This could be a horrible timing for a goal for ground zero, and it is just slotted by Drippe. You could see the problems start to arise when Amphis didn't touch that ball. Torsos goes flying past as well, and there's no defense in the end. Amphis tried his best, but he couldn't get there.
Really tough read from Drippe in terms of recovering from that, in terms of the ball going behind the smoke as well from that demo. So now Cringe Society 26 seconds away from not only winning this series, but putting themselves undefeated in the league round robin, despite changing the rosters, despite versing their old teammate. Torsos there was a major part of them getting 4-0 series in the first place. Torsos almost tied it up. A chance right here off the roof. Evers gets it. 1 second remaining. They managed to do it. They hold off the Cringe Society Tide.
Yeah, very nice stuff. The setup from Express. Amphis right in there again at the perfect time, and it always seems to be the case. Just when you think it's over. Very likely heading to overtime. 1 second. And the ball will touch the ground. So here we go. Golden goal time.
I've never seen this. I've talked about records tonight all throughout the night, but I've never seen so many in one night, so many last-second goals, so many comebacks, so many crazy plays, so many overtimes as well. It's been a huge night of Rocket League so far. Torsos just stays in the air behind that ball, makes sure that at no point do Jules feel comfortable challenging, and Amphis reads it really well to get it over the top.
Well, end of the day, we're going to go all the distance, all the way to 7, and 1 second the difference. What a difference that could have made for Cringe Society.
I don't know what to say about this day. It's actually, I can't believe that was another 0 second goal, or 1 second goal there, last second goal. It seems insane, but it continues on, and maybe, the defense just got not quite yet on the same page there. But here we go, game number 7. All the marbles goes to this game, and as we said, for Cringe Society, the chance to be undefeated throughout the entire season so far.
Almost an attempt for a kickoff goal there as well from ground zero. It was getting relatively close. Things are looking dangerous for them as they do manage to get the clear this time. Express is going to try and make that cross happen, and he has. Amphis set up perfectly again by Express, and they just seem to be combining so well at the moment.
Express again setting up another. He comes swinging out of the gates, and an early lead here for ground zero. They just have to make sure they don't give up a kickoff goal right at the start, and they haven't. Beautiful to see.
Love to see that. Well, Torsos is going to bounce that one back into Cringe Society territory. And I think this is where you can really see ground zero start to flex their muscles a little bit. If they've got that ability to put the pressure back onto Cringe Society, which it seems they do. Express and Amphis performing so well as a duo at the moment. things are going to be quite problematic indeed for Cringe Society. A comeback potentially on the cards from Ground Zero. They were down in this series. They were nearly out. It was 1 second the difference, but now it's their game to lose.
Hey, there's still tons of time left, of course, and Cringe Society played a very controlling series, a very relaxed series as well. You may expect a mistake eventually for Ground Zero, but I think that favors Ground Zero if they can prevent any mistakes from happening. If you can play that maybe near perfect game, that is all the more favorable for you. Ground Zero here have had a solid amount of attack, draining the boost away from this defense. Drippe will be the last bastion of hope, though that one pitches out, one end to the other. The bastion ends up getting that across to Jules and absolutely pinching that a mile.
Yeah, that one, I'm going to go ahead and call that a bit of a lucky goal for Cringe Society, but it gets them right back to 1 apiece, so they won't be complaining about it at all.
You're really not expecting that. From Express, his experience, he's got to know that he's offering up a potential pinch there. And even if that pinch doesn't go into your own net, you're putting your teammates in a very difficult position. Amphis almost finds an incredible angle. But this game, at 1 apiece, when Ground Zero really did have the control of it, not just in terms of that 1-goal lead, but in the midfield as well, can show you just one small mistake, one mishap makes all the difference.
Yeah, Amphis and Torsos really getting themselves in a position to try and score a goal there. They had a good attempt. Amphis has the demo onto Decker, but I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact. He's right back into the swing of things. Express will bounce the ball off of the backboard, and here might be a counter resurgence. Never mind from Cringe Society as we're back into their half, and Ground Zero continue to press that offense.
Offense has been really good for Ground Zero, though. They've been the ones more so opening up the net and creating big plays, and you're expecting that when you've got both Amphis and Torsos. Even if you just had one of those players, you're probably in a very good position for making big plays. Amphis again goes for a flick, and even though it's not going to be a goal, the threat of it makes it very difficult to clear out for Cringe Society. A mistouch, though, from Express isn't going to help out, as Cringe Society now get a bit of control of the midfield here. Torsos intercepts it, though, and Jules has to be up to that one quickly, and he is. So midfield control being wrested back and forth at the moment.
Express just tries to bounce the ball back over his head, won't be able to. Amphis, luckily, or rather not Amphis, the clear was secured though by Ground Zero when Amphis got demoed, so no real opportunity for an offense. Cringe Society this time slow things down just a little bit. Decker sets it up in the air, right in the slot really for Ground Zero. Express takes advantage of it, slows things down, tries to cross, but Drippe will keep things safe.
As we had Game 7, we might have Game 7 overtime, and that would only be fitting for a series in a day full of overtimes, full of last-second goals as well. Amphis has to be up to that task, but Cringe Society now have the attack. They want to get it in regulation time. They don't want to go into the nerves of a Game 7 overtime. They had to do that against Renegades earlier on in the series. And of course,
there was almost not quite secured in the end by Amphis. Express got him a potential chance there. Now Torsos is going to be the one to send it forward. Express is there, but it's going to go way too high.
Chance now as Torsos is trying to find Express, but doesn't reach his teammate. Been together for not too long as well, realistically. They only just formed for this season. A miss, it goes wide. That was the chance there. And Decker does get demoed for his trouble. 17 seconds left, or we do get Game 7 OT. Jules can't get that one past the defender either, as Amphis carries this one away. It looks so much more likely for it to go to overtime, though. Amphis may want to score the goal here. It spills out into the middle. Torsos with 2 seconds. Another goal right as the buzzer is about to hit.
And that might be the nail in the coffin for Cringe Society. It was Torsos that has moved into this Ground Zero roster, and he's done the deed against his old team. Huge, huge goal for him. 2 seconds. Let's see if they can make some magic happen. The answer is no, of course. Ground Zero will win the series and hand Cringe Society Their first defeat here in the league.
Oh, it was so close, though. And this is now put it in a difficult position where these teams are at a three-way tie. It's going to go down to game differential to really separate them out. But for Ground Zero, this is a great first showing. A Game 7, not quite overtime, but it may as well have been, with the last goal happening in the last 2 seconds. And overall, one of the craziest days of Rocket League I've ever watched for 2 series. Probably the craziest 2 series in a row of Rocket League for sure.
Well, I'm glad I was here to witness that. Maybe I'm a lucky charm for you, Yummy, because we did have a couple of good games there, and quite enjoyable to sort of get back into the swing of things, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, for your first real experience here of Rocket League, I mean, you're not expecting to have that many overtimes.
No.
It's kind of why it went even beyond what I said was the maximum amount of time, because we had Game 6, Game 7. But in terms of overtimes, we had about 20 minutes of overtime, I feel like. Multiple overtimes that were 3 odd minutes, and they all really stack up. And of course, in this series, not only were they, was it a Game 7, but it was also high scoring across the entire game, across the entire series. Lots of goals, lots of replays to watch. And yeah, I guess for you couldn't have had a better introduction.
Certainly not. I mean, you told me something like maybe 20 past 9 we'd be finishing things off here, and then a revised time after that first game got cancelled of maybe 9 p.m. I mean, it's 9:45 now, so look, it is fairly true to form for me when I'm casting esports. It's like, oh, you know what, overtime? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. How about 7 of them? Yeah, I've had that in Counter-Strike as well, so it's nothing new.
It's, a big day of Rocket League. Of course, Ground Zero do get out ahead, but I do believe that in terms of the standings, I do have this correct.